What's up guys, Cory here, and Keanu Reeves is back as one of our favorite badasses, John Wick, in Chapter 3, Parabellum. Now, is it any good as the first two, or is it kind of becoming satire at this point? We'll break it down for you right now and attack the review.
Jonathan, what have you done?
To dream the impossible dream.
There's no escape for you. The high table wants your life.
To right the unrightable wrong.
Tell me what you want.
Passage.
I can't help you.
To reach the unreachable star.
Do you expect him to make it out? A $14 million bounty on his head. And everyone in the city wants a piece of it. I say the odds are about even. Dark, 5 seconds.
John Wick, excommunicado in effect in 3,
2,
1.
and away we go.
So going into this film, I had pretty high expectations. The first two John Wick films were really good, but normally by the time you get to a third film in a series like this, they're starting to get kind of ridiculous. They start to run out of things to do, and it starts to get a little over the top. I will say certain movies can do it to a point where it's still fun, kind of like the Fast and Furious series, but when you watch the trailer for Hobbs and Shaw and you go back and watch the first Fast and the Furious, it has escalated to a pretty ridiculous point. So having this be the third film in a franchise that is literally just about pretty much how cool and badass Keanu Reeves can be, it's going to be one of the things that stands out, is if it's over the top and it's kind of comical, or if it's not. So going in, I'm a little worried about that, but once I actually got to see the film, I think they did just right. I will say it was something I thought they'd have a little bit less fighting and choreography, but that's kind of the one thing that made the movie so fun, is that every time something started to get dull, they jumped back into more fighting. And as of course, it's Keanu Reeves as one of the most prolific, badass characters that's also kind of got a good heart. So you just root for the guy. You just like him. You just want him to be, not only badass, but you want him to really go out and have a meaningful storyline. So I thought this film, it was going to teeter on the line, and it did, but it also was actually really, really good. So I was pleasantly surprised walking out of the theater for John Wick 3.
You shouldn't be here. Nice suit.
Good to see you too.
So I'm going to give the acting a B because it was good. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it was really, really good, and a lot of the characters had a lot of substance. There was a lot of different characters that are also really, really similar to ones that you've maybe fell in love with Batman or things like that back in the day. And there's certain aspects of characters that have now played into a little bit of pop culture. And I think some of that background came out because it was really fun. There was a lot of things where we talked about it afterwards, and there's certain characters that had certain looks or certain quirks to them that we didn't know if we would like in real life, but the way they brought it out in the characters was really, really good. That has to do with the actors, because a lot of people are going to go out and play themselves anyways. They're going to play a version of themselves, but with the script in mind and with this character's, balance of life in mind. But when you have somebody like John Wick and a lot of characters that are trying to chase him down and kill him, you're going to get a little less substance than normal, but when you do get the substance, it's extremely important and it's there. You had similar moments with, I think it was Common that was in the second one, and it is just very, very cookie cutter as the emotion goes. But once you get into the story and you start to care, you just start to pull for him in the situations. And realistically, whether you're emotionally connected or not, you're still kind of having fun because it's a good guy versus bad guy kind of movie, and that's exactly what you're going to get out of it from the acting. So I had to give it a solid B. So for the cinematography, I gotta give the cinematography an A. This was a really, really well put together film. It was beautifully shot. There's a lot of rain, there's a lot of neon lights, and very, very cool, interesting textures to every different scenario. And every different setting is kind of unique in its own way. They play on those things really well because that's kind of how you start to pick up the pace in the film. You know where some of these certain characters either reside or where they're going, and once you end up in, the desert, for example, at a couple points in the film, you're just really like, man, this is kind of mystical because he's just all over the place. He's got so much traveling and adventuring to do here, and every inch of the world is pretty much covered by people trying to get John Wick. So it's kind of cool because the cinematography is able to really showcase some of that budget, some of that whimsicalness that the film really wanted to pull off. Because it's almost like a comic book, the way they travel and some of the scenes, jumps, and the setting. And that's what makes it so good, is that you feel like it's all happening back to back, but it's not that much, immediately in chronological order. But it's just one of those things where as it's happening, you feel that the pace isn't slowing down. You don't feel like you're jumping any giant amounts of time or not going fast enough. So I thought that was really, really well done. And every moment that the camera could capture a good shot or realistically get the fighting even better, it was just exactly what it needed to do to make the film spicier at those moments. And every moment you thought that you were going to fall out of it, something would get you, whether it be the acting or the cinematography. So definitely got to give the cinematography an A for John Wick 3.
To me.
What do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
So overall, I got to give John Wick 3 out of 5 stars because it was a really, really well put together film, and it was something that was better than the second, but not better than the first in the trilogy so far. It's one of those things I know that they set up for another film after this, and it almost is cool because you kind of, spoiler alert, get a little bit of a Morpheus and Neo reunion, and you just know that something's coming, something bigger than this film is going to be next, and depending on where they go with it, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be cool because it would be nice to see John Wick go after someone else instead of having to constantly run from other people. And I know some people might argue that that's what he's doing, but it's not as apparent as it could be. And now that they've created enemies and he's also been basically set up, it's got a lot of substance into the next film if they want to go into a John Wick Chapter 4. But going back to the first film, I don't know if you'll be able to top some of it because it's very realistic and it's very emotional, and you just really, really relate with Keanu Reeves in this film. The second film, a little less, but I think it's only because they jump a lot more into who he was and what he's doing now. And then in the third film, they just immediately drop you into he is excommunicado and people are trying to hunt him down for money, basically, at this point. So depending on what you go into the movie for, I think it's going to be one of those things that you're pleasantly surprised unless you don't like violence. But if you don't like violence, I don't know why you would go see a John Wick film. So, Aladdin comes out next week. Just wait for that. But if you do like John Wick films and you love just over-the-top, cool, violent fighting films, and it's, really fun and almost satire, but not, John Wick 3 might be your film, so. Well guys, that's all the time we have for this review of John Wick 3. Let us know what you thought about the film down here in the comments. As always, hit subscribe over here on this side. And we'll see you next time on Midnight Media TV.